Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers. My name is Bill Matz, and I'm your director of fun and games on this beautiful F Around Friday here on August 16th. Joining me today, not only do we have Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor, we are once again graced by the presence of Broad Street Hockey's own Kelly Hinkle. Happy Friday, fam. We made it.
We made
Another off-season week down, and we are going to celebrate by once again naming some dudes.
Remember some
guys.
Remembering some guys is one of our favorite
It's the
activities
best
here on this
activity.
show. And honestly, how else would you like us to spend the summer months? Other than looking back on, I think today's topic for F Around Friday is pretty funny. 2 stint flyers. Simply because I had a whole list of dudes, and then I put it out on Twitter this morning just to see. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot 10 obvious guys. Yeah. So we're going to see how many we get to today. It's a pretty funny topic. Maybe because we're hyper-focused on the Flyers, we live in our bubble. I just can't imagine there are this many dudes for most other teams that have had multiple stints.
I would be fascinated, and I in no way, shape, or form want to do this work.
Oh, yeah, I'm not going to do the research.
I would be fascinated for someone to go, someone who actually has coding ability. Because to go back through and scour everything by hand would be insane. But if someone actually had programming ability who could find a way to see every team in the NHL, how many 2-stint players they've had, and then figure it out percentage of whatever, which team does it the most?
Nerds
it seems like the Flyers do it a lot, but perhaps everyone does it a lot.
Hockey, we always say, it's a really small world. As we'll see, Bobby Clark has been in and out of this organization 3 times, Yeah. But Hockey Reference has the frivolities section. If you want to cheat at Puck Doku, players who've played for, whatever other teams and players who've played for the most teams and stuff like that. But I couldn't find a way to narrow it down to multiple stints with the same team.
I bet somebody can
But
do it.
I bet you someone way smarter than me can figure that out. Before we get to that, though, we got the announcement of the rookie series today. I guess that came today. I didn't see it till Vince was texting us about it, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, and then saw it on the internet when I got here.
There it is.
That sounds like fun. If it's 2 games against the Rangers up in Allentown, they've done this previously. I just wish there was a way to guarantee which game Michkov's going to be in, because there's no way he plays both, right?
I could see him. They've had guys play both.
They've had guys play both.
Guys play both.
But is it typically dudes who are definitely going to make the Flyers? I feel like it's maybe borderline guys or definite phantoms.
I personally think he's probably going to play both.
Oh, okay. That makes it way easier.
But that's not me having any inside information. It's just that I think they're going to want him to play.
He guaranteed it, folks.
Charlie, no.
I just think they're going to want him to play. They want him to get out there. He's probably going to want to get out there because he's hyper competitive. I'd have to go back through and see how they usually set those things up, but I personally expect them to play both games.
All right, so September 13th to 14th up in Allentown. I believe tickets go on sale Monday if you're so inclined to maybe make that trip or live in the area or what have you. It could be the first time it's going to be. He's going to play in one of them. They've already advertised him. That would be real shitty if he didn't play, because they're going to sell the place out if he's advertised to be there, I would think.
Yeah.
And so it's cool if you want to head up there. He's going to play at least one of the 2. Charlie thinks there's a chance for both. That would be fun. Other stuff. We're not going to do a Tuesday Reviewsday poll this week because I'm honestly not in that much of a mood to watch the Mighty Ducks, and that's going to win. We can get to that next week or something. We still have a few more weeks of Reviewsday Tuesday. But I want to watch this movie, Minor Leaguer. It's with Timu Solani and Brett Hull. And I think the most important thing about this hockey comedy is that it's 77 minutes long.
You're a sick
And
person.
that really speaks to me.
Okay.
It's
you
available.
saw what Blackburn said about it, right?
What's that?
You saw what Blackburn said
No,
about
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay.
What did he? It's fine. He works on the network.
I know.
We can say what he said.
He thought it was bad. I'll just say that.
I can't imagine it's very good.
You don't think Brett Hull is a great actor?
No, I guarantee Brett Hull is not as good of an actor as Paul Newman is.
Probably not.
That's my guess. It is available on Amazon Prime to rent for $5.99. I promise.
Outrageous price.
I promise next week I'll pick something that's widely available on one of the major streaming services. Most likely Mighty Ducks on Disney. But this,
Can we get through
it just looks
already?
so bad and funny. I have to watch it.
All right.
So we're going to do that in lieu of a poll. Yeah, that's it. So it is now time for F Around Friday. And before we get to that, I have to throw it over to the man himself. The guy who's going to take my job one day reading these ads. That's never going to happen. If I'm not reading the ads, I'm fired. But for this one specifically, it's time for Charlie O'Connor.
Sure. So I want to talk to you a little bit about Parx Casino, longtime advertiser for the PHLY Flyers show. It's a Friday. I would say you might be thinking about what you might want to do this weekend, possibly. Maybe you don't have plans yet, but you're looking to make them. It's perfect for after-work get-togethers, the end of the week, date night, girls' night, catch the Phillies game, Aaron Nola pitching. You know we're going to be angry about that, but it's against the Nationals, so maybe we could score enough runs to make up for it. So you want to watch Phillies game, great spot. The Eagles are coming up. Obviously, the preseason game was last night. Regular season's right on the way. Solid spot, I would say, to catch a Birds game. And it's not just that. You get to sip on tantalizing drinks, soak up those warmer weather good vibes. It is still the summer after all at Parx Casino. Offers a $5 epic happy hour. Great food and drink every Wednesday through Sunday at the Liberty Bell Gastropub. You got $5 drafts, Ford Stout, Victory Seasonal, Parx Pills, $5 glasses of Albertoni Cabernet. And then, of course, drink of the summer, $5 Twisted Tea, frozen whiskey, Arnold Palmer's. But let's say you're not a drinker. Let's say you're more an activities person. Well, Parx Casino has a lot of stuff to do. 3,200 state-of-the-art slots, 115 live table games, a beautiful poker room, and a collection of incredible award-winning restaurants. You got cover bands every weekend at the 360 Lounge. You got headliners every weekend at the 1,500-seat Excite Center. Just announced Tiffany Haddish, a comedian, on September 27th. If you want to buy tickets to that, go to parxcasino.com. And now here's the little disclaimers. Must be 21 and older to gamble. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Parx Casino, this is how you win.
Hell of a job, Charlie. Now, our friends at Ace Hardware want you to know one thing. It's that we got that. If you've got a leaky pipe at Ace Hardware Home Services, we're around the block with everything you need to fix it, including the person to do the fixing. You have an air conditioning issue. I told you about the one I had a few weeks ago. Guess what? They've got a person for that too. And maybe listen, we all have these home projects we're going to get to. Personally, I've been replacing the gutters on my house since I moved in 3 years ago. We'll see. Maybe I'll get to that this fall. We all have things like that. Maybe you have a faucet that needs replacing for the last couple of months. They have a person for that too, because now Ace Hardware isn't just the helpful hardware folks. We're the helpful home services repair folks. From plumbing to heating and air, heating and cooling, we've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. Ace Hardware Home Services, we're bringing the helpful home, the helpful you love, from the store now to your front door. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get you started on your next project. I've been dealing with Ace Hardware in my neighborhood for years now. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'll tell you that straight up. I always think, oh yeah, I can... Come on, I'm a man. My dad was a mechanic. I can do that.
Yeah.
No, that's not like that's not inherited thing. Like, oh yeah, my dad was. It's like in what the. I'll never think of it. With Spicoli, where he's like, my dad's a TV repairman. We can fix the car. Yeah, that's how I think. I'm like, no, go to Ace Hardware Home Services. They can hook you up. That's acehardwarehomeservices.com to get you started on your next project. All right, we're not going to do the misses thing because I think that was a miss last week, honestly. So we're going to go right to the two stint Flyers. And this is, I told you, like, I came up with the list. I thought it was good. This will be a fun conversation. Charlie jumps into the outline for 2 seconds and is like, yeah, man, Bernie Parent. Like, one of the guys on the Mount Rushmore. Yeah. Two back-to-back Vezinas, back-to-back Smythes.
One of the three best players of franchise history, at least.
Yeah. I actually ranked him ahead of Bobby Clark when we did a thing. I don't remember if it was like if it was Sons of Penn or Broad Street Hockey, but it was like the best player from each country from your team. For I think it was for Puck Daddy back in the day. And I was like, no, my vote is Bernie Parent. Now, personally, I do have my vendetta against Bobby Clark for his time as GM in the 90s, and maybe that weighed into it. But I was like, no, back-to-back Vezinas, back-to-back Smythes. What else can you possibly ask for?
I think the debate between Clark and Parent is pretty much whether you are a full career person or if you were a peak person. Because as great as Bobby Clark was as a player, and he was incredible, I don't know if he was ever the best at his position.
Yeah.
Whereas Bernie Parent was, for a 2, maybe 3 year period, the best goalie in hockey, unquestioned. And Clark never quite reached, I would say, those heights. But Bobby Clark had a much better overall career than Bernie Parent.
Is Clark, Clark did win 3 Hearts, couple of cups, captain of the team. Is he maybe a little underrated historically?
I think so.
Probably
broke Kharlamov's ankle for
probably a little
all of
underrated
Canada.
historically, yeah.
Helped bring down the wall, Anyway, that's just but Bernie Parent. So his career started in Philly when the Flyers took him from Boston in the 67 expansion draft. They shortly after turned around, traded him to Toronto in 71. And this is where it gets fun. I was just saying before the show, we need more rogue leagues.
Yes.
Just like, hey, Bernie, come to the WHA. Because he was, I think, the first NHL guy to make the jump. And it was like, we might not be able to offer you NHL money, but we got this boat. You want a fucking boat?
I mean,
so he plays.
I would take a boat.
Yeah, he plays for the Blazers for a year. And he's like, I want to go back to the NHL. Toronto has his rights. He doesn't want to go back there. So they trade his rights back to the Flyers, and then he becomes Bernie freaking Parent.
Truly Bernie
one
Parent,
of,
yes.
at worst, the second best player in franchise history. Maybe it was only that short peak, but this begins. I got to believe it's like the first one. And that's what I was saying before the show. Do you think this is why they do it so much?
It's all trying to recapture.
It worked with Bernie.
Parent,
We got rid of him. We brought him back. And then he won 2 cups. Is this why they do this so much?
I respect the superstition of it.
Yeah.
I really identify with it. It's no, it worked last time. We just have to send them away and we bring them back and then they're great.
Yeah, but the big
Justin
difference,
Braun.
the big difference though, is that a lot of times when they bring the guys back, they are in their early to mid 30s and they stink. When they brought Bernie back, he was 28. He was nowhere near done his prime.
No.
That may be what they're missing here. It's like, if you let a guy go when he's 22 and then you bring him back when he's still at his prime, it can work. If you bring him back when he's way past his prime, it's not going to work.
I think next week we're going to do the past his prime show. Paul Coffey, Adam Oates, that sort of show.
Fun.
But no, I just find this hilarious that it's like, we got rid of him. We traded him. He went to the WHA, and it actually worked. One of the few times anything's ever worked out for this goddamn franchise, honestly. Now, it used to be a lot better, before any of us were born. But it's funny to me that this guy, Bernie, who I didn't even remember until Charlie put it in the outline, he's the prime example of this actually working, because as we're going to go down the list, those second stints, maybe not so great. And Bernie's still a goddamn institution. If you ever get the chance, I can't imagine there's many people out there with the desire to meet Bernie Parent who haven't, because he's around and he's real friendly.
Go to a Flyers game.
Yeah, if you haven't ever and want to, go ahead and meet Bernie, because it's cool. Awesome.
Nice guy.
Is so funny. Stories for days. It's the absolute best.
Got the rings
He'll tell you
on.
anything too.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
He's cool.
Great times with Bernie. This one's for Charlie. Simone Gagne.
Simone Gagne.
We're just gonna have more to say about guys who played in our lifetime.
Yeah.
I know there's stars here from before that, but it is what it is. We're going to Simone Gagne here. He's the first one I thought of. 22nd overall in 98. Played for the Flyers the first 10 seasons of his career. Traded to Tampa right after the Cup run in July of 2010 for cap reasons, for Matt Walker in a 4th. And 2.5 seasons later, they reacquire him for a 4th. Not so great the second time back. He was okay, but at this point, the injuries had started to catch up.
Yeah, he was
with him.
kind of cooked at that point.
It was more of a nostalgia grab to me. And also, hilariously, they ended up screwing it up a second time too. But I think part of it too felt like making amends to Gagne for dumping him in a cap
He was
dump.
not all that happy about it.
Well, then he wasn't all that happy about the way he got let go the second time.
Yeah.
Because what essentially happened was, I believe it was still Holmgren, if I remember correctly. Holmgren basically told Gagne the second time, like, we're going to sign you. We don't have the cap space yet. Like, just wait. And then he waited. And then Holmgren ultimately, like, filled up cap room in another way. He's like, sorry, Simone, we can't sign you. And he's like, what the shit? I just sat out free agency because you told me you were going to sign me. So they ended up kind of screwing him over twice. So the plan was to mend that fence. They meant it, and then they took a chainsaw to it.
It's, you were able to fix it. Good job, Homer, with Eric Lindros. That was a big deal. This one, that's tough. Like, that's a real tough way to go about things. And there had to be another way. After that playoff run, he just took you on his heroics in Boston. He comes back for that series. They don't lose after he comes back. He scores the game winner. There's got to be another way to clear cap space than trading Simone Gagne, doesn't there?
You would think.
Well, for a fourth and some dude named Matt Walker, whose highlight is you see the back of his jersey dancing to Knock Knock in the video. Like,
important part of history.
In fairness, the reason why they picked him was because they decided that they thought he was on the downswing of his career, and the stats tell you they weren't wrong.
Yeah.
No, that's he had a few injuries after that. He played that one last year in Boston, but only 23 games. It was concussions, right? It was.
I think that was part. There were a
things.
few things. I remember I think he took a cheap shot from Chris Kunitz when he played for Tampa. So there were a bunch of things, but also he just was getting older. He dealt with a lot of injuries. I believe it was, a year before that 2009-2010 season when he barely played for the Flyers. He spent most of the year injured. Or was it 2 years before?
07-08, he only played 25 games.
Yeah. So he had dealt with some serious injuries, and probably his body was just kind of breaking down a bit. And they obviously had access to his medicals, and they probably decided that, hey, we're gunning for a cup, and we think you're on the down, so sorry. And it was a little heartless. But, hey, on this show, we've said that
be ruthless.
Sometimes you got to be a little ruthless. Now, it would have been great if they would have gotten something back for him better than what they did.
Yeah.
Because he did still have a pretty good year that 2010 season, and he obviously was an impact player in the postseason. You would think they might have been able to get a little bit more back for him, but I wasn't in the room. I don't know what was offered. Maybe the rest of the league had a similar opinion of Simone Gagne.
It's 2010-11. He did score 17 goals, but only played 63 games. After that, he goes to the Kings, 34 games played.
Gets his cup.
Yeah, he wins there. 12-13 is a 48-game season. He only plays 38 of those games, 27 of them in his return to the Flyers, and then 23 games in 14-15 for Boston. So, he never played a full season after that.
Erased that from my memory. It's like Eric Lindros in a Stars jersey. Like, I completely erased Simone Gagne in a Bruins jersey.
John LeClaire in a Penguins jersey.
Yeah, it just doesn't exist for me.
Yeah, never happened.
Totally.
I feel like there's
erased it.
maybe it's hockey reference. They always have, unless the dude's long retired and a legend, it's usually the jersey he last wore as their headshot. And I think Simone Gagne is still in a Boston jersey in hockey reference. One of the questions I wanted to ask, obviously, Bernie Perrant is a fly. I mean, yes.
Yeah, of course.
Simone Gagne, I don't care if they trade. Yeah, it ended bad. He is a goddamn flyer and one of the most clutch flyers of all time.
Oh yeah.
See, these are tough questions. I feel like, because I often wonder, would a Kings fan say that he's a king since he was there when?
Because he wasn't
won the cup?
He wasn't a major contributor to that run.
They got him in the lineup for that last game, so he'd be on the ice to lift the cup and stuff. But I feel like he did not play much in that playoff.
Let's take a look at the.
That's just my memory of it.
I keep this around in my brain a lot.
He appeared in 4 games during that playoff run.
Okay, so probably not.
Yeah, it's not as if I think of Mike Richards and Jeff Carter as flyers, but Kings fans would be like, "You're fucking wrong."
Yeah, no,
that's
you're
correct about
right,
that because they were major contributors to them winning the cup. Simone Gagne was not.
No, Simone Gagne, he is absolutely a flyer.
Yeah,
I guess that is tough. We've said, I want them to be ruthless. I want them to be that way. Be Vegas, man. Yeah, go through 3 GMs in your first, 5 coaches, whatever it is. Yeah. Kill everyone to win that cup. But man, I just feel like there should be some exceptions made sometimes.
It sucks when it's a
Figure
guy that you
something
out.
like.
Yeah.
Also, like, these teams weren't good.
No,
Like,
not
who
really.
cares? Sign him. He's better than whatever bum you probably signed. Oh, we needed Roman Labimov, so we had
were
to let you
trying.
go.
Not wrong.
One of my favorites on this list, for so many comical reasons, James Van Riemsdyk.
JVR.
JVR
It's very funny.
has signed 4 NHL contracts. He signed his entry-level contract
With the Flyers.
He signed a 6-year extension with the Flyers.
Flyers.
They traded him before that contract even kicked in.
Correct.
He hits free agency after 6 years in Toronto. They signed him to a 5-year contract.
Brought him back.
That contract expires. And with Boston, last season, 1 year, $1 million, the only non-Flyers contract he ever signed.
That's a Flyer, baby.
That said, he's a Leaf, right?
I would classify him as a Leaf.
Let me put it this way.
Yeah.
I really, really hope that he considers himself to be a Leaf.
because the fans hate him.
Because that fan base loves him
Yeah.
so much more than Flyers.
Do they really? Are they like big fans of JVR?
I think there are generally positive feelings about James Van Riemsdyk.
Well, okay.
Whereas, I mean, I think that the hate for JVR in the city is batshit insane.
It's misguided.
But it
little bit.
exists. It's very real.
Yeah, I think I have some still. I don't think the guy should get beaten up when he leaves his house. Like, I think he's fine. I don't think he's a bad dude or anything. And I think he was underrated. I stuck up for him a lot as a player because I was like, I don't even like him that much, but I recognize he does some things well. But yeah, considering he signed 3 contracts in his career up until a year ago, and all of them with the Flyers, I don't see him as like, oh yeah, Flyer. Also, he had his best years in Toronto.
Yeah.
It's like a great Quizzo question. Someone file that away. Give it to Ava later.
I just think with JVR, like there are 2 things that killed him here. And one of which was completely out of his control. One of which I guess in theory was, but you kind of are who you are as a player. But really what it boils down to is, number one, he wasn't Patrick Kane. So that started him off on the wrong foot with the fans.
We were very mad
He could have
about that.
overcome that if he was either A, really, really good, or B, played in a way that the fans enjoyed. And unfortunately, he was
Didn't do
just
either of
fine.
those,
He
yeah.
was good,
Yeah.
but he wasn't great. He was always just a good player in Philadelphia. And then he really didn't play a style that fans like.
No, because he was big.
He was big and he didn't play physical.
Didn't
and
hit.
there's nothing that pisses off Flyers fans more than big guys who don't play physical and don't score as many goals as you think they should.
Travis
Like John,
Sanheim.
like John LeClaire was not a super physical guy. Who cares? He scored 50 goals. And he maybe wasn't throwing his weight around, but he took punishment.
Yeah.
He was in front of the net and you could see that he was getting the crap beaten out of him to score goals. JVR was he scores sometimes, but not nearly as much as you think he should. And he's big and not that fast, and he doesn't hit.
Yeah.
And it was just that you pile that onto the fact that people always looked at him as you should have been Patrick Kane. And some people just loathed him, just absolutely loathed him.
So the Flyers bring him back July 1, 2018. It's their big thing.
Yeah.
And there's always been contention. Was Ron Hextall told, no, it's time to turn the corner, bro? Sorry, you have to make a move. It didn't seem as if he was let's go out and get a JVR. That's what we need. Doesn't seem very Hextall-ish.
There is truth to the theory that Dave Scott pushed for them to turn the corner. However, I do not think that Hextall was strong-armed into doing it. I think he wanted James Van Riemsdyk.
Did it make sense?
No. I don't know what they were doing
at the time because it was they're doing something.
Something, right.
They need to get better. He just scored, 36, 37 goals in his walk year. Awesome. Cool. Get better. I want this team to compete again. And then it was oh, you know what? We still have Wayne Simmons.
I think it made sense to do something. I don't think JVR fit what they needed. I think that's what I look at.
He was that was always what made me think it wasn't Hextall.
I don't think he fit what they needed.
They still had.
he was the guy in free agency that year.
They still had when they signed him, Wayne Simmons on the team. Now they trade him that season.
So the story behind it, and I've never been able to pin down exactly who it was, but what I basically heard about the JVR thing was that the Flyers came very close to making a very big move at the draft before they signed JVR, and it didn't happen. And Dave Scott and Comcast got pissy because it was like, you promised us the big splash. Now you got to go out and sorry, dude, you got to go out and do something because you basically you basically chickened out at the last moment and didn't make this move. The big rumor at that draft was Ryan O'Reilly, and I do think the Flyers were poking around. The name I heard thrown out there, and this is truly just scuttlebutt. I had heard that they were in on Panarin. And that didn't happen, and that maybe that played into Comcast being well, you told us you were going to get us this stud, and then you didn't pull it off, so you got to get us something.
That's disheartening.
I've never been able to confirm.
I would love either of those guys.
I do know that O'Reilly was a guy they were interested in, and there were rumors about that was known that they were poking around in O'Reilly, but I did hear a couple people being I think it was Panarin.
Ultimately, though, Panarin wanted to play for the Rangers.
Yeah.
So that would have been heartbreaking to have him and then watch him go to the Rangers. Yeah. So maybe it's better to not have loved and lost. Maybe it was actually better.
The Ryan one haunts me to this day.
The O'Reilly one, yeah. Because he would have made such perfect sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's so good.
Is JVR's biggest contribution, and he was very good, I would say, in those 2011 playoffs. He's the only one that showed up against Boston. Is his greatest contribution in all his time with the Flyers simply not getting traded, leading to the dismissal of Chuck Fletcher?
Yes, thank you for your service, James. Yes.
Not being Patrick Kane and not getting traded is what he's remembered for. For me, it is.
Those are kind of the big
Is that his legacy as a Flyer?
It's rough, man. It's rough.
He's a trillionaire. He's fine.
It's not rough for
he's a Rangers fan.
It stinks for him that
he was really good.
He's had to deal with this ridiculous amount of particularly online hate for what are truly irrational reasons. That said, he's made a shitload of money, so he'll be okay.
He'll be okay. Speaking of, you just mentioned John LeClair. Well, the guy who was throwing his weight around, loosening up those pucks for Lindros and LeClair, Michael Renberg, with one of the funnier times in and out of this franchise. So he goes 40th overall. The Flyers take him in 1990. He finishes third in Calder voting in 93-94. Spent 4 years with the Flyers before they trade him to Tampa Bay along with Carl Dykhouse in order to get their 4 first-round picks back from the Chris Gratton offer sheet. They used those first then to draft Simone Gagne and Justin Williams, among some other guys.
Important guys. William.
About a year and a half later, they go, fuck it. We don't like Chris Gratton. They send him back to Tampa Bay, and they get back Michael Renberg. And who else did they get back for him? It was... I just had it in front of me, but someone else we know and love. Okay. David Langkow. That was a guy who probably should have come back at some point.
I always liked David Langkow.
He was good,
we
man.
all liked him.
Always liked him.
I feel like I went to a game, he scored a hat trick in or something.
I feel like he was the original Scott Lawton.
And then Renberg comes back, and I remember the day when they were finally going to do it. They're we're reuniting the Legion of Doom. He'd been back for a little bit, and he wasn't really doing much. And fuck it, we're just running it back, man. Why not put him with the 2 guys he had his most career success with? Yeah. And it didn't last long. But man, Renberg is what is Michael Renberg? Is he a Flyers legend? No, he's never going to have his number retired or anything. But he had some good years and is part of the most successful team of our lifetime.
I wonder with Renberg, because basically what happened with Renberg, if you remember, was he just had his body broken down by injuries. He had some really gruesome injuries. He had this one time where he got cut by a skate. But if I remember correctly, the big thing that really ruined his career, maybe not ruined, because he had a perfectly fine NHL career. He was part of the Legion of Doom. He had a fantastic rookie season. But what led to his decline was he had abdominal groin injuries, recurring injuries that just never really stopped and just got progressively worse and worse. I kind of wonder if he plays today and surgeries are better.
It's a sports hernia. We can sew that up.
Yeah, does he stay good into his early 30s? I would be interested.
He's done in the league. He comes in at 21, finishes third in Calder voting. 03-04 is his last year. He's 31 years old. He played 10, 11 seasons, and he's just done. He played 59 games, scored 12 goals. Like, this was a dude who his rookie year, 38 goals, 82 points. Amazing. And he's done at 31 years old.
What's interesting about him is I feel like it's extremely age dependent how important you think Michael Renberg is.
Yeah.
Because, like, he was only here 4 years. But, like, I'm sure for you and I, like, those 4 years were real big years for us as Flyers fans. So, like, in my mind, Michael Renberg is like a foundational Flyer, even though logically he's really not.
And one of the funniest things I love about this, and this happens a couple of times, a repeat Flyer then gets traded for another repeat Flyer. They trade him in March of 2000 for Rick Tocchet. And it's Tocchet's second stint.
There you
It's
go.
very, very funny to me that if we ever, because we said earlier, we're like, I'm not going to do the research. I don't know how to figure this out. But if we ever get to do like a cross network with Phoenix, Denver, and Chicago, and any other places we might launch in the near future, I would just like to know, like, do you think your team does this all the time? Like, are you under the impression that your team has so many dudes that have come and gone multiple times?
Is it one of those things? Because this is something that and I know Flyers fans think they're unique about this, but every single fan base believes that the first goal is always scored against them.
Guy in a slump.
Every fan base believes that always happens.
True
to
for
us.
us, Charlie.
Yeah, I very much believe that
It's
it happens to
100%
us
true for the Flyers.
an inordinate amount.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wonder if because we're so hyper focused, and like that was always such a criticism of Bobby Clark. Like, he gets these dudes past their prime, he brings guys back. It's the good old boys network. Like, it's such a criticism that we focus on it. Like, I'm doing a show on it today, you know? Or do other teams there's so many guys. There's so many fucking guys. We aren't going to get through.
We're not gonna get
half
through
of them
all the
today.
guys.
Like, it's 132. We've done like 3 dudes. Like, it's going to take. We can do this for the rest of the summer.
We're just naming some dudes. That's all.
Yeah. This is a fun one because
big one.
He's done it as a player and as an executive. Sexy Hexy, Ron Hextall.
Sexy Hexy.
Yes. 6th rounder in 1982. This is fun to me. Like, this is tidbit day. I love just like looking up tidbits. Like, oh, that's something I wanted to get to with the Renberg trade. So they made 3 of the 4 first round picks that they got back from Tampa when they traded Renberg there. The 4th one, they eventually traded to Ottawa in a trade down at the draft. They take Jeff Wojciechowski.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Phantom's legend. Jeff Wojciechowski.
That trade at the 2001 draft is the last trade the Flyers make with Ottawa until Philly sends Patrick Brown there for a 6th rounder last March.
That's funny.
20 plus years. And I mean, like, the 02 and 03 playoffs, the 04 brawl. There's bad blood there for a long time.
I guess
so. They don't deal with Ottawa. Like, they make more trades with the Penguins than they do with Ottawa.
That's funny.
That's
Considerably
interesting to
more.
think about. See, I always think you're crazy with your Ottawa hate, but maybe you're onto something.
I'm not the only.
You're not
Maybe
the
me
only
and Bobby
one.
Clark would really get along. Maybe he and I just.
Unquestionably, you and Bob Clark would be best friends. Are
Maybe
you kidding
he and
me?
I would actually be good buddies.
Yes.
If I could just get past all the Lindros stuff.
You'd have to forget that
Which
part.
would be very, very difficult for me.
fair.
Speaking of Lindros, though, Ron Hextall. So he's a 6th rounder in 1982. He wins 30 games and with 5 shutouts for the Hershey Bears in 85-86, and then goes on to lose in the Calder Cup final. The funny thing about this is his Hershey teammate, Tim Tucchet,
What a name.
won AHL playoff MVP in a losing effort, which Ron Hextall, of course, would accomplish his rookie year in the NHL.
For our listeners and viewers, Bill literally has in red font, foreshadowing in our outline. I laughed when I saw that one.
It's tidbit day. That's what we're doing. I get to impart some stupid wisdom on everybody with things I found out while researching Flyers who've been with this team way too many times. Tucchet did play 10 games in the 87 playoffs for the Flyers. So he wins Vezina, Ron Hextall that is, wins Vezina and Smythe as a rookie in 87, somehow doesn't win the Calder.
Yeah, that's wild.
Luke Robitaille wins it. He had an okay
he's pretty
year.
good.
But, like, I don't know, if you get Hart votes, you're the best goalie. You're I don't know, you're probably the best rookie. Anyway, He gets sent to Quebec in the Lindros trade, spends 1 year there. Quebec trades him to the Isles in 93-94. And then the Flyers get him back, along with the pick that became Dmitry Tertichny, for Tommy Soderstrom in September of 94. Of course, then there's the lockout, and they don't come back. I think 95 is the short year, right? It's 48 games or something like that.
Yeah, that was the Lindros MVP year.
Yeah, and his first 2 years back, he's not bad. Like, I always think of Hextall's return as like an unmitigated disaster, but first 2 years back, he finishes 13th and then 5th in Vezina voting.
Not bad.
And then the 97 season happens. He only plays in 8 of the 19 playoff games. Garth Snow plays in 12 of them.
Those enormous pads.
But he did start 3 of the 4 Stanley Cup final games, for whatever that's worth. Sean Burke, I have no memory of this. Sean Burke started all 5 games of the 98 playoffs, a loss to the Sabres. Hextall did get in 1 relief appearance. And then, of course, that offseason, they bring in John Van Beesbroek. Hextall's the backup. He retires after that.
Is the Van Beesbroek year the year that they were also thinking about getting Cujo? Was that
Yes,
that
they
year?
could have had, I think it was, those were the
Cujo
2
or
big
Beezer,
free
yeah.
agents, and they ended up with Beezer,
Well,
who was not bad in his first year.
What was the Richter year? There was a one-off season where they thought they might get Richter.
I remember that.
Yeah.
But I don't know what year it was.
It all just kind of slams together in
Yes.
like every
Flyers
year
goalie woes.
they're
Yeah.
trying to get a goalie who's past his prime but a big name.
They do. But this is when it gets funny. This is straight from Hexy's Wikipedia. Upon his retirement from playing in 1999, Hextall immediately joined the Flyers staff as a pro scout. He was promoted to director of professional player personnel 3 years later. Then he ends up... then in June 2006, Hextall moved to L.A. to take on the role of vice president and assistant GM of the Kings. Flyers, he wins the Cup in June 2012 with them.
Right.
And then May 7th, 2014, Hextall named GM of the Flyers. When did they bring him back? July 15th, 2013.
a year later.
He returns to the Flyers as the AGM and director of hockey ops. And then in 2014, he's named the general manager of the Flyers. It would have been nice if they did that a couple of weeks earlier. Maybe avoid that Andrew McDonald contract.
I mean, we've heard that Hextall was part of that negotiation.
Yeah,
process.
I know.
He
Also,
might have
he
went
really
with it
liked him.
anyway.
He probably would have. Would have given him more,
Maybe.
honestly. And then, of course, November 26, 2018, Flyers fired Ron Hextall as general manager. So this is a guy with a whole bunch of stints as a Flyer. Now, I realize it ended bad here. He's a Flyer, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Do you...
It's going to be tough, though. Like, I don't know when he gets like the
Lindros
triumphant return, because like it's very clear that Bob Clark fucking hates it.
Yes.
Like
that's the problem.
And Holmgren was very. I don't think Holmgren hates Hextall, but I think he was severely disappointed in him. And obviously, Hextall probably is bitter towards Holmgren. Holmgren's the guy who fired him.
That was the bad. Like, you replace this guy, and then he gets to fire you.
Yeah.
That's the Flyers in a nutshell, man. No one ever fails here. They just get promoted.
Exactly.
It's truly incredible.
But I wonder if Hextall doesn't get his, redemption tour with the Flyers until some of the old guard passes away. I just wonder. I don't know how that plays out.
I don't know that anyone's going to ask for it.
Yeah.
One of the big problems is we don't want him back in like a front office role, right?
No.
Like that was a disaster.
That ship is sailed.
Like Eric Lindros, I would hire to do anything.
But Lindros got his big moment because he can play in alumni games, and now he's part of it. Like he plays in all the alumni games.
Yeah.
Ron Hextall can't.
Yeah.
Like Ron Hextall couldn't play in 2012 because of back problems. It's 2024 now. Like, he definitely can't anymore.
Also, was Lindros brought back into the fold after his Hall of Fame thing? Or
No,
was
No,
it before?
It was before.
It was
Okay.
before.
Yeah.
Because remember, there was the whole thing.
Holmgren was trying to bring him back.
Yeah, he
to
was
play
the one
defense.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
He's
Yes.
like, I think you can play like 10 minutes of defense for us.
I think he was
How
onto
fucking
something.
awesome would that have been?
I
Of
would've
all the
died.
guys on this list, imagine if they brought back Lindros.
God, that
What was that,
would've
like
been so sick.
2014?
No, it was earlier than that, right? Because
That would've
wasn't it
been
for the
amazing.
it was for the Winter Classic, right? That was
Was that what it was?
around the Winter
Is that
Classic.
when he came back?
Because
When they did the whole Lindros night and everything?
It was 2012 was the outdoor.
Wasn't the first time he came back was for the outdoor. It was
The
the
winter.
outdoor alumni game, right? That was the whole thing. That was what sparked it.
Oh, yeah.
So he could have.
I remember now Lindros.
So he would have been.
Scoring a goal in
He
that
could have
game.
been in that fucking Penguin series.
He could have played
that shit show of a Penguin series. Would that have been good or bad? Because like, he's
Good.
gigantic.
Unquestionably.
He could have killed somebody,
Yeah,
but like,
he might have got another
should
concussion.
he have like
He
you
might
don't
have got
want him
another
fighting,
freaking
right?
concussion. Yeah.
Yeah, like
That's
that would have
fair.
been.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. I feel like we have a bunch of super chats today, so that's fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Everyone loves talking about guys.
Did it make sense? I won't even talk about it.
It
as a
is very
player.
funny. Like, and this fits the theme of the show. Like, is there anything more appropriate to this theme that they almost brought? They consider bringing back.
That's the ultimate. That would have been awesome.
That would've
I
been
don't
amazing.
care how much of an
Example of that.
unmitigated disaster it would have been. That would have been the
sick.
coolest shit ever.
Yeah.
You have Yager and him together.
Oh, God.
That would have been amazing.
Oh my god!
Jesus. That, oh my God, so close. I won't even talk about it as a player, bringing him back. I don't know what the circumstances were. Seems like they needed a goalie. They went out and got a goalie they were familiar with. He had a couple of good years and then it was over. He had all those groin problems and everything. I think we talked about this the other day. I don't remember if you were here, Kelly. While ultimately Ron Hextall failed in dramatic fashion here. It had that, like, I'd rather him fail here than never know.
Oh, yeah.
After what went on with the Kings and we had to find out.
They were always going to hire him. And to be fair, there was really good reason to at the time. It seemed like he had a big hand in building those Kings teams that were very, very good.
Yeah.
And so it seemed like a good idea to bring him in.
And I will always say that I don't think there was anything wrong. And I know there are people that disagree with me, but I don't think there was anything wrong with Hextall's overarching philosophy.
He was onto it.
Like some people will look at it and say, no, like Hextall was not true to the Flyers' way because he was being patient and he was building through the draft and wasn't going to make big trades just to be flashy. And the Flyers have always been like that. And I get that argument. I disagree with it, but I understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Is that it lost an essential part of being the Flyers when he went and did his way. My thing is that I don't think his way was destined to fail. I've made this argument on the show multiple times that had he just made the right draft picks and picked the right players, I think it would have worked. And I think they would have gotten that surge of growing elite talent to support Giroux and Voracek and whatever was left of Wayne Simmons and whatnot. He just picked the wrong players. Like if you're gonna structure an entire plan based on building through the draft, and we're not going to trade away the guys we draft because we want to draft and develop, and that's the way we're going to build a championship caliber organization. Fair. But you got to get the picks right.
Yeah, and he did
didn't.
not.
And
No.
that's why it failed. So I don't think that like his philosophy was wrong.
No.
I just think that he turned out to be a bad drafter. And there were probably more issues with the infrastructure of the organization than even he realized in terms of developing the guys too.
Yeah.
He trusted that they could develop these guys, and as it turned out, they did not have the staff in place to properly develop these guys.
No.
And that part of that is on him. I don't think he hired the right coaches.
No, it's part of me is like, well, it was kind of just a half measure. Like you should have but that was never going to happen I know Ed Snyder gave his blessing. Okay, we'll be patient and all that, but they were never going to be the tank team. And as we're seeing, they're acknowledging a rebuild now, and they're still not the tank team.
Tanking, yeah.
But I always thought that. But really, like we've talked about this before. Yeah, man, take Mikko Rantanen instead of Ivan Provorov, and things look a lot different.
Yeah,
there's like a couple of picks in there.
We're staring at the Dallas Stars. I know they didn't win the cup, but like
Flyers.
Claude Giroux in an alternate universe very, very much could be Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn.
Yes,
where you've got you have Miro Heiskanen and Mikko Rantanen and one more really good player, and then Giroux is the second, third line guy who's still real good, but like not as good as he used to be, and he's behind the guys who they drafted during the Hextall era, who are the new stars. It's just Hextall didn't draft any real new stars. And the best guy he drafted was Konechny, who was very clearly a tier 2, not a star kind of guy.
Giroux would be putting up, like, we get him, Mikko Rantanen, in the slot on the power play. Giroux's putting up some of the best numbers of his career, and it's like, yeah, he's like a middle sixer now. Like, he's not carrying the team, but he's scoring as much or more than he ever did.
Yeah.
Now, Ron Hextall initially traded away in the Lindros trade. This is, speaking of a day for tidbits, I did not, I think, ever think of this. But first of all, does Peter Forsberg count? Is he a multiple stint flyer?
I don't think he counts.
I would say no, because he never played a game the first time.
I know he was drafted.
Yeah.
But no.
I would say no.
He's a should have kept.
Should have
Yes,
kept,
should
yeah.
have.
But I don't believe that. But that's the category he fits in.
Well, I mean, it would have been nice if they could have kept and also gotten Lindros, but
I honestly,
would do that trade again for sure.
This is funny, though. So obviously they bring back Peter Forsberg coming out of the lockout. He's one of 7 guys that they sent to Quebec in the Lindros
How many
trade.
of these guys were they bring back?
Steve Duchesne was here in 91-92, traded for Lindros, brought him back at the deadline in 98-99.
Okay.
Kerry Huffman was in the Lindros trade, came back for 4 games in 95-96.
He ended up working for the Phantoms. He was coach for the Phantoms.
Nolan Bumgardner was one of the to-be-named later guys in the Lindros trade. He came back primarily for the Phantoms in 06-07, but did get a few games up in the NHL. In all, the Flyers shipped out 7 players for Lindros. 5 of them eventually played for the Flyers at some point after the trade.
That's really funny.
Only Mike Recchi and Chris Simon never came back.
It's remarkable, really.
Simon would have been cool.
I know, it would
Yeah,
have
he
been
would
great.
have
been nice.
He would have been a
Fans
peak
would have loved
flyer
it.
at the time, yeah.
Like, again, maybe every team thinks this, but there's no way anybody has a 7-for-1 trade, essentially, in which 5 of those guys eventually play for your team again.
Yeah, I'm coming around on the thing that like this
There's
might just
no
be the
way
Flyers.
this is-
It's just us.
No
Might just
way
be the
it's like
Flyers.
this.
There's no way everyone can do this.
And I guess it is part of their whole idea of, you know, when you're
Flyer
once you're a flyer, you're a flyer for life.
Walk together forever.
Yeah.
They mean it
Unfortunately,
quite
it's not just
literally.
the guys who won. It's random dudes.
everybody.
Like fucking Nolan Bumgarner.
What a great hockey name.
This
It
is
is a good
Nolan
hockey name.
Bumgarner.
I asked Twitter because, like, again, I came up with this whole list and then was like, man, there's got to be so many more because I think they do this all the time. And then I went to Twitter. It was like, who's your favorite? And we got a whole bunch of answers today.
Okay, what do we get?
Just scrolling through them, we just got so many. But somebody with 3 stints is my favorite because I asked who everyone's
Sorry
favorite.
about that first one.
Yeah, Kelly's reply is your mom. Thank you, Kelly.
Sorry.
Amazing.
But I asked people for their favorites. We got a whole lot of Gagne's, Justin Braun.
Vinny Braun. Justin Braun.
He might be one of my favorites.
God, Justin Braun.
There was a few
I couldn't
future
believe he wasn't on the
Claudes.
list.
Bunch of people think
They
Claude
brought back
Giroux's
Nate the
coming
Great.
back.
Nate
Nate
Thompson.
Thompson.
Yeah, Nate the Great. I forgot that it was 2 different times. Fedotenko, Recchi, obviously,
He's a Penguin.
Perrant, Rick McLeish. Like, they brought so many
You
of
guys
these.
will never forgive Mark Recchi.
Never. It's not Bill. It's just
But
me.
that's okay.
That was the quality.
We
of the
get
bit.
to my favorite, Brian Boucher.
Brian Boucher.
Because
The
not
man.
only did he have 1 stint, not only did he have 2 stints, 3 stints with
king.
the Philadelphia Flyers.
And now he's back. Now he's back in the fold as a broadcaster.
He's
full-time broadcaster.
Flyer for life, color commentator. I really love Boucher on
Future
the.
Poho.
No, Boucher's
Yeah.
good.
He's really good.
I
He's
really like Boucher on the
He's
on
great.
the broadcast. I think it's important to have a goalie
It's
because
nice.
nobody else can tell you about goalies other than goalies.
Yes, and he breaks it down very
Yeah,
nicely.
he does it pretty well.
Yeah.
I really like
I
Boucher,
agree.
but his career arc real fun.
Umberger.
22nd.
God, that was a bad one.
Yeah,
Real bad.
22nd overall in 95. 3 years with the Flyers, 99-2000 through 2001-02, and like
This is Boucher. Right?
pretty Boucher.
Yeah.
Some pretty big moments here, like the 2000 playoffs. He has the all-time save, the sprawling save.
Right. Yeah, incredible.
They blow that lead and everything. They eventually bring in Czechmonic, but he and Czechmonic combined for a Jennings Trophy one year. Like, pretty good first stint with the Flyers. Eventually traded to Phoenix with a 3rd for Jesus and Esch. Now, again, I have my problems with Bobby Clark. Pretty good.
That's a good trade.
Pretty damn good trade.
It's a good trade.
That's a pretty damn good trade.
Solid
Boucher
trade.
3rd for your starter and like your 2C, like not bad at all. Jesus is damn good for this
Zeus,
team.
the Zeus chants were classic.
Yeah.
Zeus is a guy everyone wants to be on this list because people always wanted him back.
Yeah.
People were pissed when they traded him.
You're right.
And always wanted him back after that. Yeah, I got to give it to Clark for this trade, though. But so he has the 3 years in Philly, traded to Phoenix, makes pit stops in Calgary, Chicago, and Columbus.
You go back to a second, though, you talk about Hansers. Like, Robert Esch wasn't bad. Esch,
your starter.
We forget that Robert Esch was the Team USA goalie in the Olympics.
He was good, man.
I named my cat after Robert Esch.
Did you really?
Chico.
The Chico Resch story,
Yeah.
they just got his sticks
stick.
before the player, and they're like, what the fuck? Is it R. Esch? Who's this guy? So they just started calling him Chico.
Amazing.
Hilarious. Boucher spends a couple years in San Jose, and then on July 1st, 2009, first day of free agency, 2009, they bring him back to back up Ray Emery.
Why not?
Who we'll talk about in a minute. But he has that year. Obviously, Emery gets hurt. He and Michael Leighton are splitting time. As one gets hurt, the other comes back. And then that happens like 6 times, I think. He's Bob's back up the following year. Goes to Carolina as a free agent July 1, 2011. Then coming out of the lockout in 13, Carolina trades him back to Philly along with our old pal Mark All.
A real guy.
He got into 4 games, 1 start. Briz started 40 of the 48 in 2013 before getting bought out. I remember specifically because I'm writing for like Bleacher Report at the time. I was like, start him all 48. Let's see if he's going to be worth the money because we're going to have to buy. Like we have these compliance buyouts.
Yeah.
Let's see if we're keeping him. If not, well, there's going to be an article about it on BroadStreetHockey.com in a couple more years.
Yeah.
A few more years.
2027, baby.
And then he did eventually go to Switzerland for a little bit in 13-14 before hanging him up. But I love Brian Boucher, man. I realized like he wasn't awesome, but he had some awesome times.
First of all, as a Phantoms fan, all time, great.
The thing I
Phantoms.
remember about Boucher with the Phantoms is he's the like tandem / backup to Little the Calder Cup year 97-98. And he dropped his sticks. Like, the biggest problem with Brian Boucher, I remember, for those Phantoms teams was couldn't hold on to his stick. Dropped it so much, it was an issue.
And then the final game of the 2010 season, like all-time Flyers moment for anyone that's...
Like, for a guy who was mediocre at best, he has the 2000 playoffs. He has the 2010 playoffs. He has the end of season in 2010 to win the shootout against freaking Henrik Lundqvist.
Yeah, right?
Like, all of that. And he had the shutout streak in Phoenix.
Exactly.
He had the all-time shutout streak.
I still have it, I
Hell of a
believe.
career.
Yeah.
I think there are just some guys, and like some guys, it's obvious why they connect with Flyers fans. Some guys, it's not. And like I don't know if I can really point to any one reason why Brian Boucher connected with Flyers fans to the degree that he did, but he did.
Yeah.
And, you know, like obviously now an entirely new commentator, the same way as when I got into hockey, I knew Gary Dornhofer as the commentator, and my dad would talk, oh yeah, he was on those great Flyers teams. And it's like, that didn't matter to me. He was just a voice, and I got to know him as a voice. And now an entirely new generation will get to know Brian Boucher as a voice. But even before he came back as a broadcaster, I don't think there were many players during that era that, you know, I don't think Boucher was many people's favorite player. But I think if you're talking about like approval rating, his approval rating was extremely high.
Yeah.
And I can't really pinpoint any particular reason why, aside from the fact that he just had that, like, something about his personality, something about the way he played. I don't know. It just allowed him to connect with Philadelphia fans in a way that a lot of guys don't. And like another guy who's similar, and I can maybe point to more reasons because his on-ice play was gritty and annoying in a way that definitely got Flyers fans loving him, is Jonesy.
Yeah.
Jonesy was not an amazing player. He was fine. He
was good.
I wouldn't say he was like bad, but he wasn't incredible.
He was really good at playing with good players.
And he wasn't even on the team for that long.
No.
But for whatever reason, fans just gravitated to him, and now he's basically running the team.
Goddamn, like a step away from the owner.
Yeah, right.
Like, he runs the team now. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like one of the like I said, like sometimes did it make sense to bring them back? You put together this Stanley Cup caliber team from 2008 to from 07 when they start all the way. It's now summer of 09. At the draft, you made the Pronger trade. So you have Chris Pronger. You're going for it. You're doing this shit. Ray Emery and Brian Boucher. Like that's what Ray Emery coming back from the KHL after a year in the K, and Brian Boucher for his second time.
It was a choice.
This is what we came up with. Now, I guess there's probably cap parameters here to take into consideration, all that shit. You sign Richardson Carter to the big deals. You bring in Pronger on a new contract. You got all Danny Briere with the big free agent deal a few years. So you probably have to make concessions somewhere. Does it have to be your starting goaltender? Like the most important, and like to think what happened.
Yeah.
We pull Michael Layton out of fucking men's league because Ray Emery, the guy who, I don't know, who's coming back from the K, gets hurt. And Brian Boucher is now your primary starter on this cup contending team. Like, how was this the plan? How?
Yeah.
And then the way they lose it, you deserve that one, Paul. You were playing with fire. You were playing with fire, and the thing that you were like, I really hope it doesn't come down to this.
It did.
It fucking did.
Very much did.
It very much did. And speaking of Ray Emery, I do want to get to him because this is just this one was the way his second stint went was the most predictable shit of all time. But we have to start with when they first got him. So after a couple of years in Ottawa, he's really good in 07-08. In 06-07, he's really good. In 07-08, he stinks. Ottawa just straight up waives him. He goes to the KHL, puts up good numbers for a year. Flyers sign him actually in June of 2009. Okay. He gets hurt in December. What's funny about this to me, he comes back, plays a bit in January. February 1st, he has an 18-save shutout. Doesn't play again for the rest of the season. His first and last starts for the Flyers that year, both shutouts. He was okay. He put up a 905 in the time in between. He was pretty good. But then he plays a bit in Anaheim, 2 years in Chicago, and then he puts up, in the lockout year, 2013, 922 with 3 shutouts and 19 starts for the Chicago team that
a really good
won the cup, right? It was them in 2013. Yeah, he's got a dynasty in front of him, and he's the backup, puts up good numbers. So the Flyers bring him back.
Naturally.
And,
he has the one shining moment during this stint. This
is the
Holtby fight.
Yes.
That's he didn't fight in his first stint with the Flyers.
He's like, got to rectify that.
Oh, he certainly did in the second. He made 46 This one really stood out to me. His second stint, it's 2 years. Made 46 starts, but 59 appearances. Oof. He came in relief all the time. That's how bad the goaltending was.
That's wild.
Puts up 899 and 301 over the 2 years. He did start the first 3 games of that Rangers series in 2014, and he was really good in game 2. 1 and 3, he stunk real bad.
Yeah, that was the series where Mason gets hurt in the final game of the year against the Penguins, so he misses the beginning of the series, and then he comes back midway through and plays really well when he came back.
Yeah. No, Mason was awesome in that. If they had Mason from the start, I believe you have a huge upset in 2014, and that's on the back of 2012. And suddenly Claude Giroux's playoff career is totally different.
I could see it.
But
well, I mean, it's not that different. It's just viewed differently, probably.
Maybe.
Yes, the perception. Before we get to this last one I want to talk about, because I think it's funny, I got to thank all of the PHLY diehards out there. Thank you for all you do for us. We very much appreciate your support. We could not do what we do here at PHLY without our diehards. If you want to sign up and be one of these people I thank every day, go to allphly.com. Sign up to be a diehard, get all Charlie's premium content and a whole bunch of other things. All right. This one, Bobby Clarke. Now, of course, his playing career spends all 15 seasons with the Flyers, wins 3 Hearts, a couple Cups. He's the man. Greatest Flyer of all time.
Yeah.
Upon retiring at the end of 83-84, he immediately becomes general manager of the Flyers, and he spent 19 of the following 23 seasons as the general manager of the Flyers. Why not all of them? Well, after going to the Cup Finals in 85 and 87, they suck in the late 80s, early 90s. Jay Snyder fires him in 89-90. Gets rid of him.
Yeah.
He goes on to the Minnesota North Stars, where he goes to the Cup Final again in 91. He spent 2 years there. He leaves Minnesota. he returns to Philadelphia to assume the role of senior VP during the 92-93 season and to serve as a mentor for Eric Lindros during his rookie season.
Well, that went well.
That didn't
how
work out.
about that decision? Clark moved on shortly after, no shit, and took the GM manager position with the expansion Florida Panthers, a team that set the expansion team record for wins and points during the 93-94 season. And then he comes back in 94-95. Now, of course, in 93-94, who was Bobby Clark's assistant GM? Chuck Fletcher. So thanks for that, Bobby.
There's the connection.
Little trip down to Florida.
There's the connection.
And he comes back. The Flyers had to, they had to give him compensation. Cash and Philadelphia's second-round pick in the 94 draft to get Clark back. And, of course, on Wikipedia, because he probably wrote it himself, he rebuilt the team into a cup contender. It had nothing to do.
No, he did.
Bob Clark doesn't know how to use Wikipedia.
Had nothing to do with fucking Eric Lindros. It was Bob Clark. Yeah, okay.
Come on.
Okay. And then they made the playoffs 11 seasons in a row. But after the first couple weeks of 06-07, they suck, and he quits. Paul Holmgren becomes GM, does a hell of a job for that first time. Comes back December 06, named senior VP, and he is currently a senior advisor along with a bunch of other people with recognizable names. Bobby Clark, obviously he's a Flyer. Obviously he was always going to be a Flyer for life.
Of course.
Is there a world where it all works out with Lindros if they just don't bring him back? Right? It happens. I mean, he probably still has the concussions.
Well, where they don't bring Clark back.
Yeah, where they don't bring Clark back. He still has the concussions, but maybe it's like not the warrior captain. You play through everything. You're a little bitch here. Like maybe if the GM isn't calling him a little bitch and being mean to his parents, like it's different.
It's so hard.
It's still Philly.
It's so hard to know because like if it's not Clark, who's the GM? It's probably like another former player, right?
Almost certainly.
Well, you never know though, because they did have runs.
Paul Holmgren.
They had runs during the non-Clark eras where it wasn't one of the bullies running the team.
Yeah.
So maybe it's more of a buttoned up executive type rather than Clark. I don't know. I think let me put it this way. I definitely think in retrospect that Lindros was much more right than Bob Clark. I, however, do not think that Lindros was blameless.
No, he was an immature kid.
Not in terms of like the injuries. The injuries, yes, that he got screwed over. There was not as much recognition of the severity of concussions, and the old school hockey man mentality did not flow well with the severity of concussions and all that stuff. I get it, but Lindros was a cocky ass kid who wasn't exactly palling around with the right people in Philadelphia at the time. So there were going to be...
Sounds familiar.
There were going to be issues that popped up regardless of whether Bob Clark was GM. So I don't know. It's possible it could have went better if there's another GM, but I don't think it's a certainty.
No.
I'm thinking about this and how we repeated that same problem with Richards and Carter.
Yeah.
Maybe having family man Travis Konechny around, maybe it is good to re-sign him for look... He was a kid too, and now he's a man. And you don't need to be an asshole. You can be an asshole on the ice.
Children.
You can still have some fun.
Yeah.
But settle down a little. Focus on your hockey career. You're going to be done at 34, and then you still have your prime of your life to go out and be an asshole.
And maybe the concussions were always going to happen because he, it was an era where it was anything goes era. He did have the tendency to keep his head down when, dude, just
wood sticks.
Keep your head up. You don't have to stare at, the puck when you're stick handling. It's fine. And while it sucks that it ended the way it did, to be sure, it's not like Lindros in his post-Philadelphia career was ever Eric Lindros again.
He was
good. He had a couple good years with the Rangers.
The first year with the Rangers, he was really good. And if I remember correctly,
they didn't miss out on MVP level Eric Lindros after it all fell apart.
His second year with the Rangers, it's fair, plays a career high 81 games, but only 19 goals, 53 points. And it really was never,
He was a good player, but he wasn't Eric Lindros anymore.
First year with the Rangers, he's a point-a-game guy. After that, it's really he's never Eric Lindros.
Yeah.
Would another GM have gotten him a goalie?
or a defenseman.
Or a
I
defenseman.
get like Desjardins is good,
Yeah,
but the rest of the group,
It was pretty much the goalie. The defense core during those 90s teams
it wasn't bad.
was good.
it was fine.
I think Desjardins was a number one, and then they had a bunch of other guys that were good.
Yeah.
Did they? No, they didn't have a Hall of Famer, but I don't know. Like those guys are real hard to find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
not a goalie.
There's so many other names. I do want to get to the super chat, so we're going to have to call it. But Tocchet, I mentioned. Recchi, obviously. Do we count two different Eric Gustafsons?
No.
Yes. They're the same guy. You
Are-
can't tell me different.
I say no immediately. Kelly says yes immediately.
Same
Same
guy.
person.
Our boy, Kelly Peter White.
Peter White.
Rusty Fedotenko, Vinny Prospel. I believe Travis Sanheim counts because he was
'Cause he
traded
got
to St.
traded.
Louis,
Yeah.
technically.
Oh my god.
Nate Thompson, who we mentioned. Like I
Nate-
can't even.
Nate's great.
Yeah.
Mike Knuble, I forgot about. Claude Giroux at some point, obviously. I really don't think that's happening. Craig Berube 2 times,
never know.
and then a coach. Justin Braun was mentioned. Totally forgot that, even though it's like the funniest thing ever.
Remember when the Flyers?
This happens so goddamn much.
Remember when the Flyers had like one of the worst defenses in hockey, and Chuck Fletcher's solution was to sign Tony DeAngelo, trade for Tony DeAngelo, and re-sign Justin Braun.
I mean, he was a really underappreciated genius. In his
Just running
time.
it back, boys, but
Yeah.
this time with 100% more Tony D.
I really wonder if I could get into Harvard. I really wonder if I could get into Harvard. I think I could.
We're aggressive retooling.
You got to have a rich dad.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
All
That's the
right.
ticket.
Before we wrap it up, let's get to the super chats. I think we have a few today. Oh wow,
Oh,
we have
wow.
A lot of super chats
Shit,
today.
Hello,
I did
friend.
not
Cool.
time the show well. All right, let's go to JH. Do you know if the team is releasing a jersey schedule to know when the boys are going to wear Charlie's favorite
They
jerseys?
never do release jerseys.
They don't.
No.
I know
Like the Flyers have specific, or the Phillies
the
have
Phillies
specific
do.
days.
Yeah, they do the ugly blue ones on Fridays.
Oh
But they're
my-
not good.
Are you guys going to fight?
They're bad.
What ugly blue ones?
You just don't think they exist? You've blotted them out of your memory?
The Throwback Thursday jerseys?
The Phillies.
The City Connect
The City Connect
Oh.
ones.
Oh.
The Phillies wear the ugly blue
Union
jerseys
jerseys.
every Friday.
Yeah.
I have. Maybe I just don't watch them on Friday. I've only seen them wear it like twice. Maybe I just never watched the Phillies. Yeah, and like they day games. They wear the cream. Like
Right,
they have
right.
like a
The
Throwback
Flyers
Thursday.
do not really have a set schedule that makes sense. I'm sure they have a schedule
Yeah.
internally, but they don't show it to us.
Like
So
weekend
no.
day games, they wear like the blacks or something.
It's a
but like I don't
surprise
know. Yeah,
every
I don't.
time.
Not that I know
It's
of,
a surprise.
JH. But if someone else can tell them, if you know better than us, it's possible. All right, this next one from Sherman M, the Shermanator. Askarov wants out.
Why
Flyers
are
should throw
people-
out their first rounder and Russians.
This was a heavy topic
People
of
are
conversation
obsessed with this guy.
in the Discord over the last week.
Yeah.
Here's the thing with Askarov. So Askarov, for those who do
He
not
wants
know,
to play in the NHL.
He was a first round pick. He is a first round pick. It's not like he lost his first round pick status. He's a first round pick from Nashville. He's still young. He is a highly touted goalie prospect. The assumption for years was when UC Saros' contract is up, then Askarov is going to jump in and become the Nashville Predators goalie of the present and future. Instead, the Nashville Predators this summer chose to re-sign UC Saros, who is old and now is on a long-term deal. And Askarov, who is still a highly touted goalie prospect, basically has apparently informed them, like, I don't want to play the AHL anymore. I'm ready, and I really don't feel like spending my career as the backup to UC Saros. So he is supposedly available. Elliot Friedman has reported that. I understand why Flyers fans are intrigued because, look, we've talked for a long time about the fact the Flyers need high-end talent. Askarov is a highly touted goalie prospect. With the departure of Carter Hart, the Flyers do not have a clear-cut solution in goal for the long term yet. And it's like, yeah, Flyers have 3 first-round picks. Why don't you try to get Askarov? I just don't think the Flyers are going to do it because they think very highly of Sam Ersson, and they want to give him another year. They feel like, people look at his numbers from last season and, oh, they stink. The Flyers very much view it as the reason why his numbers stink is because we put him in a bad spot and overplayed him.
And they might be right.
That's on us, not on him. Yeah. We're not going to ding him for having bad stats when we're the ones who ran him into the ground. So they still think Ersson can be the guy. They signed Fedotov. We'll see what happens with Kolosov. But Askarov wants to be in the NHL. That's like one of the things that why he's trying to push to be traded. And their NHL setup is locked in for the season. Ersson is the number 1-ish, and Fedotov is the other guy. Now, if they didn't sign Fedotov, maybe that would make more sense. But they're not going like the only way they would trade for Askarov is if they either in the trade or in a separate deal moved out Ersson. Yeah. And then they immediately slot Askarov in for where Ersson is. They're not going to do that because they like Ersson and they believe that he can be a legitimately good starting NHL goalie. We'll see if they're right, but like that's why they're not going to do it.
Also, the Flyers have a couple highly touted goalie prospects.
They have Bjarnason, they have
Zvragin.
Yeah. They have Kolosov depending upon what happens with that situation.
I would make any move to upgrade the position to. There's never a sure thing with goaltending.
Sure.
No.
But we have no idea what's going on with Kolosov. Fedotov is 28 years old.
True.
Sam Ersson, he might be something. I don't know. We'll see. Bjarnason, that's forever away. Who the hell knows?
And Zvragin is even further away.
Is forever away. Yeah. Who the hell knows?
But also,
why not? Like,
well, because there's only so much. There's only so many spots you have for goalies. That's why I'm saying like it's not just.
No, I would trade one of our goalies.
It's not just as simple as get Askarov and throw him in there. Like if you get Askarov, you are making the decision that we are giving up on Sam Ersson, and they are not ready to do that. You clearly are more open to that idea.
I'm not like I want to see this year if.
They're not going to dump Fedotov because they just worked hard to bring him over, and also he's one of Mitchkov's designated buddies.
Yes,
so it's Ersson.
Yeah, and I want to see what Ersson can be in a regular situation. Like if this wasn't on the table, and who the hell knows if we have anything that Nashville's interested in.
Yes, and I think it was going to take a lot more than like a first rounder.
I like kid. Ersson like, a first and what?
He hasn't really done much.
No, but I feel like. When you need a goalie, you're gonna.
I think if they threw an offer of a first round,
like Jacob Markstrom didn't just go for a whole lot.
Yeah, that's fair.
Exactly.
You make a good point.
Like and Saros signed the long term deal. I feel like because they were like, well, shit, none of these offers are all that interesting. We'd rather just keep UC Saros.
I think the Flyers very much had the assets to get Askarov if they wanted him. Yes. I just don't think they want him because they believe in the upside of their current goalie situation and they're not ready to blow up their plan for this guy. That's where I think they stand.
I think is fair.
I get that. I just think like he's probably better.
Maybe.
I would if it's Ersson in a first, yeah, man, do it. Like, sure, give him that Edmonton pick. No problem. Absolutely no problem with doing something along those lines. But I don't think they're going to.
Yeah.
And if you were to waive Fedotov, something tells me he's like, peace.
Oh, yeah.
He ain't playing in the AHL. No. All right, let's try to knock the rest of these out. Linden 49. Guys, Bobby Clarke is the greatest Flyer ever. What he did for the Delaware Valley was amazing. I lived his every shift. No better leader. No, absolutely. Bobby Clarke, amazing.
No quarrel with Bobby Clarke as a Flyer.
Bobby Clarke,
he's the
amazing.
Guy. Yeah.
Bob Clarke, bad.
We don't like Bob.
Like that's what it comes down to.
The point I made earlier was that like when you're comparing Bernie Perron to Bob Clarke, and I'm probably sure that's where this came from. My point is that I think that Bernie Perron's peak was better than Bobby Clarke's peak because Bernie Perron was the no questions asked, best goalie in hockey. When Bobby Clarke was at his peak, Guy Lafleur was probably still better. Like their Bobby Orr was better. Like there were better skaters, there were better forwards than Bobby Clarke, whereas there was no better goalie in the world for 2 years than Bernie Perron. And if you are a peak person, I could understand why you could make the case that Bernie Perron was better. That said, Bobby Clarke's like the consensus best Flyer.
He's the Flyers. Sure. Bobby Clarke is the Flyers. That's what the Flyers are. It's him. Him wearing the jersey, holding up the cup. That is the Flyers.
Yes.
All right. This next one here from Matt Chipman. Hey, guys, for a throwback, what if the Flyers acquire Lindros without trading Forsberg and Hextall? Is the Flyer winning 2 cups instead of the Avalanche?
They don't have Patrick Waugh.
Yeah. Maybe.
You got to have a goalie.
Yeah, like Hextall still has the groin problems. He had some good years. He had some down years. Maybe in one of his good years, you capitalize.
They're definitely better.
Yeah.
They're better.
Yeah, they have Lindros and Forsberg instead of...
I'd say they're better.
Maybe you still get Rod Brendamore, too. Like, yeah, you're pretty fucking good down the middle.
Was already there, right?
Yeah.
He was already there.
I just, like, in this world where they keep Forsberg, like, you still acquire... Brendamore, he was in St. Louis, I think. Like, maybe if you're able to figure that out somehow, sure.
But then you also got to make the Recchi for Leclerc and Desjardins trade. Still have to do that. So then you get into butterfly effect. Trade. Do they make that trade if they still have fours? Who knows?
It's a good question. But yeah, a lot better chance of winning those 2 cups.
Sure.
Let's see here from Gary B.
So Gary B is a Forsberg should be included.
Okay.
I disagree because he never played for the
Technically,
team.
Peter Forsberg made this list, part of the Lindros trade, and one of the players who was signed past his prime. Yeah.
If he had played a single game for the Flyers, I would say he's on the list.
He is at least a footnote because of he was in the organization. They brought him back, and he's one of the 5 of the 7 guys that came back.
They had his rights. They
did have his rights.
Yes.
It is up for debate, though. All right, let's see this next one here. Mr. Twitzer just became a diehard. Let's fucking go, guys. Happy F Around Friday, and thank you, Mr.
Welcome
Twitzer.
to the party, pal.
Yes, appreciate your support. Is this the last one, Bryn?
Yeah,
the last one here from Catholic Nano, underrated 2-timer that Bill has to love, Dave Brown. Yeah, that's absolutely. I mean, I'll always love the fighters. Sure. Of course. Absolutely. All right. That's it, guys. I can't believe we went to 2:13 on a Friday, but so be it. It was a fun show, I thought. We remembered some dudes. And that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers today. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, hit that like button. Hit me a thumbs up, and then subscribe. Make sure you're following us right here on YouTube. Set those reminders so you never miss a live show. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers. And follow the podcast as well, because why not listen to the same show twice? We would love it. Just search PHLY Flyers. That's it. My name is Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. That's Kelly Hinkle. Until next week, stay loose and sexy, Philly.
Have a good weekend.
We all silly like the mayor.